Coming up today, Samsung Electronics releases its second quarter figures. The Korean company's chip sector breaks records, but the mobile sector is struggling to pick up a head of steam. Two brothers at the head of one of Korea's biggest conglomerates, Lotte Group, wrestle for power after the younger brother demotes his father, who founded the group more than 65 years ago. Plus, Korea remains in the grip of a heat wave. The southeastern city of Daegu will sizzle under temperatures in excess of 35 degrees Celsius. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Thursday, the 30th of July. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. And we start with the latest report card from Korea's biggest company, Samsung Electronics. And it's a mixed bag. Samsung's memory chip business is flourishing, posting record quarterly sales. But the company's mobile division underwhelmed due to supply issues and competition at the lower end of the smartphone market. Song Ji-sun has the details.
Samsung Electronics fared quite well in the second quarter, with profits inching up compared to the previous quarter. Samsung's operating income stood at $5.9 billion, continuing its steady recovery after an earnings shock in the third quarter of last year. Samsung's memory chip sector played a big role in keeping the company on the right track. The division logged profits of $2.9 billion, a 5-year high, and all-time record sales of $9.7 billion. Sales and profits edged up on quarter in Samsung's mobile division, but it's not performing anywhere like its heyday a few years ago. Although still the leader in the global smartphone market with 22% share, the Korean firm was the only one among the world's top 5 smartphone makers to see its market share drop in the second quarter. Samsung failed to meet strong demand for its latest Galaxy S6 Edge model, and handset sales in the lower end of the market slumped.
The momentum for Samsung's latest model launches faded pretty quickly, but the mobile sector will pick up in the second half as it's a better time for the ICT industry.
And that depends on how Samsung's new products sell. Samsung says it will reinforce its lineup of low-end smartphones for emerging markets and premium models for its high-end market. In a bid to recover its share of the large screen or phablet market in the latter half of this year, Samsung will unveil the Galaxy Note 5 and the Galaxy S6 Edge Plus on August 13th in New York. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Now, bad news for Korea's 3 largest shipbuilders as they posted their worst ever losses in the second quarter. Industry data shows Hyundai Heavy Industries, Daegu Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering, and Samsung Heavy Industries reported a combined loss in earnings of $3.3 billion in the April to June period. The combined operating loss of the so-called Big Three is estimated at $4.1 billion, also the largest ever loss. Now, the losses largely stemmed from construction delays on offshore projects like oil and gas rigs. All 3 ventured into offshore oil rigs to avoid direct competition with Chinese shipbuilders. The offshore projects cost more than the Korean companies had anticipated, and competition between the 3 forced prices down to unreasonably low levels. No change in interest rates in the United States after the Federal Reserve maintained its 0 to 0.25% range. The Fed also gave no hints about when a rate hike is coming. In a relatively poker-faced statement, the U.S. Central Bank's Open Market Committee again said that it will raise rates when it sees further improvement in the labor market and when it's confident inflation is moving back towards 2%. The committee's decision to keep rates static was unanimous. In terms of its view on the U.S. economy, the Fed sees it growing moderately with solid job gains and falling unemployment. Analysts still generally believe the Fed will start to gradually raise rates in September. The Fed has held rates near 0 since late 2008 as part of its efforts to spur the recovery from the global financial crisis. Turning now to the latest on allegations the nation's spy agency used a malware program to snoop on citizens. The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy co-hosted a seminar today at the National Assembly with a civic organization called OpenNet Korea. Now, panelists there discussed the illegality of the surveillance and technological ways to get to the bottom of these allegations that are swirling around. Citizen Lab, the University of Toronto research team that uncovered the Italian spyware program and the roughly 21 countries that purchased it, including Korea, joined in via video teleconference. The ruling Saenuri Party expressed concerns that the ongoing scandal could hamper the spy agency's cyber intelligence activities against North Korea. The party also stressed that the current allegations are based on speculation, not facts. Now, North Korea's recent declaration that it's not interested in nuclear dialogue raised eyebrows around the world. The Wall Street Journal thinks it may know the reason why the North made such a statement. The answer, which has something to do with Libya's ousted dictator, may surprise you. Son Jung-in has more.
North Korean leader Kim Jongun may be avoiding talks for fear of going the same way as Libya's ousted dictator Muammar Gaddafi. In a report earlier this week, the Wall Street Journal points out that Kim succeeded his father in late 2011, close to the time when Muammar Gaddafi was killed by a rebel militia. The Libyan dictator's death came 8 years after he'd agreed to give up his weapons of mass destruction, a point the paper says the North refers to as a fatal consequence of Gaddafi's nuclear capitulation. The newspaper said Kim is refusing to engage in negotiations over his nukes as a way to avoid the same fate as Gaddafi or Iraq's ousted dictator Saddam Hussein. The Daily cites recent remarks by North Korean diplomats in New York and Beijing who made clear the North has no interest in an Iran-style nuclear disarmament deal.
We are not interested at all in dialogue to discuss the issue of unilaterally freezing or dismantling our nuclear weapons program.
The Daily also said Western countries have little leverage over North Korea in terms of sanctions, as the state is largely cut off from international trade and normal diplomatic interaction, unlike Iran, where tough economic sanctions helped bring the country to talks. Meanwhile, the article follows assessments by local analysts that Kim Jongun is a much more threatening figure than his father. A senior analyst at South Korean think tank Sejong Institute said in a report this week, Kim has carried out selective executions for disobedience to regain and strengthen his power. Now the focus is on whether the international community will change its strategic approach to the reclusive country or keep trying to bring Kim back to the table. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Now, the beauty and biological diversity of Korea's DMZ is second to none around the world. It's basically been untouched by humans for more than 6 decades, and the place is teeming with endangered plant and animal species. And South Korea is pushing for the DMZ, a remnant of war, to become a symbol for a peaceful future. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
This is the military demarcation line separating the two Koreas. It stretches across some 250 kilometers of the border and is at most points 4 kilometers wide. It's also the most heavily fortified border in the world. The DMZ, as is more commonly known, contains 907 square kilometers of land and accounts for almost 0.5% of the Korean peninsula. For 62 years now, the land has been untouched by man and is a sealed-off site of pristine nature, a safe home to scores of endangered species and wildlife. As a result, the DMZ has developed its own historic, environmental, and economic identity over the last 6 decades.
There are numerous types of species here from both Koreas because this is the place where the ecologies of the two meet. The Ministry of Environment lists 171 endangered species and the DMZ contains 75 of them.
In recent years, the South Korean government has been pushing to list the DMZ as an internationally recognized area of outstanding natural beauty. President Park Geun-hye has also expressed a strong interest in establishing an inter-Korean World Eco-Peace Park at the DMZ.
The goal of the Eco Peace Park is to enhance the trust between the two Koreas and open up a section of the DMZ. But the most important part of that will be how well we preserve it. We need legislation to provide the funding to protect the area.
Despite the ongoing tensions between the two Koreas, the South Korean government is hoping to persuade North Korea to make the park a reality sooner rather than later. The DMZ, a long-term symbol of separation, could become a beacon of peace and harmony if a special park is established here. Kim Jongun, Arirang News, Paju.
Now, an ugly battle within Lotte Group's founding family sent shares in the conglomerate's affiliates soaring on Wednesday on the benchmark Kospi. For more on the roots of this conflict at the top of one of Korea's biggest business groups, Shin Se-min reports.
It's one of the biggest family feuds Korea has ever seen. The succession battle between the two sons of Shin Gyuk-ho, the 92-year-old Lotte Group founder, has made headlines this week. The mud fight began when eldest son Shin Dong-ju flew out to Japan with his wheelchair-bound father on Monday in an attempt to increase his shares in Lotte subsidiaries and remove his younger brother from the board. The latest twist? Within a day, the younger son, Shin Dong-bin, had called an emergency meeting of the board of Lotte Holdings, the de facto holding company of Japan-based Lotte Group, and fired his father, demoting him to the position of honorary president. With that, the second son had gained the upper hand and successfully prevented his older brother from taking over. That means Shin Dong-bin is now in control of Lotte companies both in Korea and Japan, whose combined sales amounted to roughly $53 billion as of last year. The drama at Lotte Group sent Lotte affiliate stocks soaring on Wednesday on speculation that the Shin brothers would start snapping up shares to solidify their control over the group. The question now is which Shin sibling will gain control of the key companies, like the Lotte Holdings and the Lotte Hotels based in Seoul. The two brothers currently hold stakes of roughly 20% each in the holding company, with the largest stake owned by their father. Some say the wrangling between the two siblings could eventually draw other family members into the battle. But for now, the younger Shin has lost the support of his eldest sister, the Lotte Foundation chairwoman, who has thrown her support behind her brother, Dong-ju. The younger brother may have gained the upper hand for now, but he still needs a larger stake in the group to become the leader of the Lotte empire. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, earlier this year, a group of American historians released a statement urging Japan to acknowledge its historical wrongdoings, which prompted hundreds more historians to do the same, follow suit. Hwang Sang-yi sat down with Professor Mark Selden of Cornell University to learn about why he signed the statement and for his views on Korea-Japan ties.
What were your reasons behind signing the statement?
The United States is not a direct party to the Japan, Korea, China comfort women relationship at that time, but we have our own issues related to it in terms of the Korean War, in terms of the U.S. occupations of both Japan and Korea. So these are issues that particularly concern us in the context of the fact that Japan and Korea and China are in the middle of a dispute about how to remember the history of that period and the comfort women and the larger issue of forced labor.
How effective do you think this type of collective response from world historians could be in getting Japan to fully acknowledge its historical wrongdoings?
So this is a process that is going on, and our letter is a small part of that, but it happens to come at a moment when a lot of things are happening. Both Japan and Korea have made applications to UNESCO for World Heritage Sites, an issue in which the comfort women and I would say forced labor became part of that process. There are many things at play, and in which the Japanese government finds itself in a position of having to change.
Speaking of the UNESCO listing, what do you make of Japan's unofficial translation leaving out forced labor?
Word games are going on. The Japanese refused to use the signature language of forced labor the Japanese government scored a victory domestically. The Korean government scored an important victory internationally in getting on the table Japanese recognition of the comfort women system and other elements of forced labor. This is not a complete victory, but it's an important milestone, and we hope that it can be extended in future.
Many believe that the so-called Abe statement that will be released sometime in August could be a turning point for Korea-Japan relations. What's your expectation, and what do you think should be within this statement?
We can see that it's very easy and comfortable for Abe to apologize to the Americans, as he did brilliantly in Washington, D.C. There are many positive relations in the U.S.-Japan relationship at the moment. I don't see any reason to expect that his statements next month will go beyond these in terms of Japan-Korea or Japan-China relations. There may be references to forced labor and comfort women, using language very carefully nuanced to be comfortable for the regime and its neo-nationalist support. That's his political base. So I'm not expecting any major change around the issues of this kind.
Thank you, Professor Selden, for your time today.
Thanks so much. Pleasure to talk to your audience.
And finally, before we go, we'll leave you with a brief look at the weather, because it's steamy and cloudy across most of Korea today, and temperatures are forecast to soar well into the mid-30s later this afternoon in certain parts of the country at least. Here in Seoul, however, the afternoon high will top out at 31 degrees Celsius. Daegu in Korea's southeast is forecast to be the hottest place in the country today. Temperatures are expected to hit a sweltering 36 degrees Celsius. It will stay stuffy throughout the night. The overnight low in most parts is forecast to remain above 25 degrees Celsius. Now, heatwave warnings are in effect in southern regions, so if you're spending much time outside, please do take the necessary precautions and stay hydrated. And those are the stories we've been following on this hot Thursday afternoon here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out our website, arirang.com/news. Have a great day. Goodbye.